Two Boston public schools have lived under the same roof, and a leaky one at that, since 1975. The Jackson Mann permanently shut down in June, but the Horace Mann for the deaf and hard of hearing remains, for now, in a building that school officials admit is not a safe learning space. How did this happen? It's a tale of two schools. Christian, a third-grade student with autism, gets off the bus, one of his last rides home from the Jackson Mann School, closed for good in June.
I loved it for like years.
The building may be failing, but Christian's mom says her son thrived at Jackson Mann, and she was intentional in choosing it.
He's had an amazing abundance of resources.
Jenny Millian wanted a strong special ed program and a place where her son could stay until high school.
We found our home. Jackson Mann is K through 8, and that was the biggest thing for us, is that he would be in a solid place. He's a kid who is, routine-based. It was just really devastating. Oh, man, sorry.
Meanwhile, Isabella, a student at the Horace Mann School for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, plays at home with her sister, knowing she will be back at her school in the fall.
Head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes.
What makes this situation striking, some might say incomprehensible, is that Jackson Mann and Horace Mann are in the same building, and Boston Public Schools is closing one school but not the other.
You still have to heat it. You still have the same amount of custodians to keep it clean. These are very expensive issues.
Larry DeCara is a former Boston City Councilor and author of a memoir on busing and the Boston Public Schools.
Good planning, of which we've not had a lot in the Boston schools for a while, should have been able to figure out an alternative.
For Jenny, it feels unfair to be pushed out until the building closes for everyone.
It pisses me off. It pisses me off. I'm really upset at that.
What we saw at the Jackson Mann, previous to this year with the previous administration, is a failure of planning and communication.
Will Austin runs the Boston Schools Fund, aimed at delivering high-quality education in every neighborhood of Boston.
If you know that a building is bad shape, you have to communicate that clearly to the community and really clearly communicate a plan.
The Jackson Mann Horace Mann complex has the highest building needs score in the entire school system. That's BPS speak for the building in the worst shape that impacts the most students.
In one of my science classes, the ceiling was falling apart and there was leakage, and we had to use a garbage can to hold the water in.
NBC 10 Boston was not allowed inside the building until after the Jackson Mann closed for good, and then for only about an hour. In the spaces we saw, there were signs of water damage, classrooms without doors, open spaces like this area without walls where the library once stood.
I can't say whether the building's good or not, but I can say that the way that it was closed resulted in a lot of disruption for families.
Plans to close Jackson Mann really began to percolate in 2019. That April, a top BPS official wrote to Gene Powers, a Jackson Mann parent and activist. As of now, we are planning to close the Jackson Mann facility, but not the school. And then from interim superintendent Laura Purriel, this level of work is so extensive and time-consuming that the safest course of action long-term is to vacate the building.
A lot of us stayed here thinking we would have more time here when we were told 2 years ago, but that didn't happen.
Instead, Jackson Mann was closed forever. The community dispersed, and parents like Jenny Millian didn't learn the school would shut down until this winter.
I thought maybe they were closing down and during the summer, and then they'd be open back up in the fall.
These things were all knowable. We knew the Jackson Mann was in bad shape in 2016.
More than 60% of the 120 buildings in the Boston public school system were built before 1950, but it's the facilities built in the 60s and 70s that have failed the most. The West Roxbury Education Complex, which opened in 1976, was deemed unsafe and closed in 2019.
The 1970s buildings in the district are really uniquely designed and use a lot of materials we don't use anymore.
Buildings were built big and thick because there was urban rioting in the 60s, and people were interested in being sure that buildings could be fortresses. And the goal was to construct large school buildings in neighborhoods where black children and white children could both walk to school.
On opening day in 1975, the Boston Globe describes a school where educators teach racially diverse classes of students, both mainstream and special needs, all together. The concept may have worked, but the Jackson Mann complex didn't wear well. So what's next for the dozens of students at the Horace Mann School for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing?
These are some of our most vulnerable kids, right? These are the kids that require the most services.
The temporary plan is to keep the students in the Jackson Mann complex for one more year, then move the students into another shared space here, to the Charles Edwards School in Charlestown, 6 miles away, starting in the fall of 2023. To make the move, the district will need to spend $31 million to retrofit the building.
Within the first year of her starting to attend full-time, her language proficiency and use of language became incredible.
Charlie Kim, Isabella's father, co-chairs the Horace Mann Site Council.
They blamed COVID, they blamed budgeting, planning, all these things, but the bottom line is they just didn't move when they had to move. They were very indecisive.
The Boston Public Schools refused to make someone available for an interview. They offered a statement saying, in part, BPS decided to close the school because it was not a safe learning space. Working with the city, it was determined that it was okay for the Horace Mann School to remain until swing space is ready.
We have as many buildings, even a little bit more than we did 20 years ago, and we have significantly less kids.
In fact, BPS has seen a whopping 26% decline in enrollment. In 2015, Boston Mayor Marty Walsh rolled out Build BPS, $1 billion to upgrade schools, close some, and build others in an effort to restructure.
Construction involves timetables, specific projects, resource, and implementation. Build BPS never produced that, but there was never a set process of saying, over the next 10 to 15 years, this is what we are going to do. And so that resulted in school communities kind of wondering every year, are we going to get closed this year?
This June at Jackson Mann, the answer was yes. Students and teachers leaving for the last time.
It's heartbreaking. I'm devastated we're leaving our families.
I wish we could stay for another year so I can graduate.
But no one will ever graduate from Jackson Mann again. Which brings us back to Jenny and Christian. He will move on to the Josiah Quincy School.
And I think that may be the biggest thing is the fear of the unknown. Maybe it's looking at the glass half full, and Christian has always thrived regardless.
I can't wait for next year.
I'm proud of you.
As part of Boston Mayor Wu's Green New Deal, the city is promising $150,000 for a site study. It will evaluate locations for a permanent home for the Horace Mann School. Eventually, the plan is to demolish the Jackson Mann complex and build some kind of new school at that location. The question is, will a new mayor and a new superintendent, Mary Skipper, be any better at big picture planning, transparency, and communication? We'll be watching. I'm JC Monahan.